Okay, people, how you do? Thought I'd talk about again more in words of power and sign language. So we know that the ancients mimicked the animals in their environment, the lion, the tiger, etc., the crocodile, even the insects, the fly, the bee, etc. But they became masters of these sounds, the words of power. And they could use them to deter a wild beast. A beast coming towards them, etc., could be deterred by these words of power, which are sounds. Sound can disrupt the electromagnetic frequencies in our body because we are electrical creatures. The sound can disrupt this. Like we hear a person say, these kids are getting on my nerves. Well, the kids are making a lot of noise and playing and so forth. Yeah, it's disrupting her frequencies, you see. Same with a person who goes into shock, maybe in an accident or something, and they look confounded afterwards. And in shock. The accident has disrupted the electromagnetic frequencies. Things are like out of order. Okay. So we see now that how the people were able to deter, let's say, the wild beast by disrupting his electromagnetic frequencies, where the animal would look consternated, confounded, wondering what's going on. He not realizing, or it not realizing what's going on within him, what these sounds are doing to him. He turns around and goes back the other way. So, let's say 1,000,000 years later, where we get into the humans who have a cerebral cortex, well, they create difficulty for themselves. They bring in or create within fear, anxiety, depression, etc. And of course, they want to get rid of these traits. These are the bad personality traits. Okay, they become the beast within him, and he wants to deter them. In other words, he wants to stop the depression, etc. Okay. So we are reading some religious scriptures, some religious books, where there's a person who is being tormented, and he cries out for help. He cries out, he says, "Please, Lord, help me. The beasts are after me. They're biting at my heels. They're ripping my thighs. Please help me. These beasts are trying to kill me." Well, this is put in verbal form. In verbal form, we're not talking about words of power. So actually, what's going on in these religious books is representative of what happened or what people were doing 1,000,000 years ago. Okay? But now, the person who was crying for help is the person who had created within himself all these difficulties. It's going on within him, you see. And what he wants to do, okay, is to muster up the power, words of power, to deter the beast within himself that is giving him so much trouble, that is biting at his heels. He wants to deter them, get rid of them altogether, actually. And so these cries to the Lord are actually words of power. That he is using to deter these personality traits by disrupting electromagnetic frequencies that support these traits. These traits are supported by our passions, electrical energy within ourselves. So words of power and sign language take different turns, etc. They are expressed to us in different ways in the scriptures. So we see the God of wisdom, a moon god. His name is Tot, or Thot. He's the one who wears the ibis on his head. The bird with the long beak, that's Tot. Some call him Thot. Hermes of the Greeks. Well, the ibis is a bird of passage. It goes and comes. This is the way it probably does the same thing today as it did thousands of years ago in Egypt. But why is this significant to us in the scripture, in the mythology? As a bird of passage, it goes and comes. It also represents, the bird represents breath. Birds represent breath in the old mythology. They also represent spirit, or the soul. Or we see the bird Ba, B-A. It has a bird's body and a man's head, indicating that it's the soul. So we see now that the ibis is a bird of passage, okay, and it deals with breath, breathing. It represents breathing, and it represents spirit. That back to that old energy that flows through our body, the spirit. But when it comes to the passage going back and forth, when we breathe in and out. That's the passage. Okay? So now if we used our imagination doing, let's say, a breathing exercise, we could, let's say, breathe in, okay, and we say, I just imagine a breath going down, and it goes all the way down, like, to the abdomen. You know, it goes into the lungs, whatnot, but we will imagine it going all the way down to the abdomen. That imagination has an effect. So, when we get down to the abdomen, we're in the underworld. Okay. And this is where the person who is begging for help, Lord, please help me, they're biting me and they this and that, it happens in the underworld, okay? All this great trouble and so forth and so on. So when we breathe down, this breath goes to the underworld. And here we have this person down there howling and crying, please help me, so forth and so on. Okay? And then with the exhale, we imagine the breath coming up, you see. And we can imagine that when the breath comes up, that it like crosses over. We say it crossed over to, let's say, heaven or the promised land, or it transforms. And this gives the person in the underworld who is screaming for help relief, or may set him free from his torment. Now, these exercises are designed to set people free from their torments, fears, anxieties, headaches, and whatever else that is tormenting a person. So this is the mythology telling us how we people can help ourselves through doing these various exercises. And and so the mythology is put to us in so many difficult ways, difficult for us to understand. You see, we really have to penetrate. Like they say, there's a dead letter to the Bible, the Holy Bible. They say it's a dead letter to the Bible. This is the letter. This is what you don't understand. What you don't understand is said to be the dead letter. The dead letter in the Bible. Because they write it in such a way as though it wasn't meant for us to understand. Well, maybe it wasn't. Way back there, years ago. But anyway, we see now that the ibis, if you've ever seen that picture before, the guy with the bird's head, the ibis, the stork, the heron, these are birds of passage, and you may see either one of them in the mythology. They mean the same thing, you see. So there was a narration on the unwritten word, that a few days ago. It was posted a few days ago. You could always go back and check that out to help get understanding of what was said today, or you can take whatever was said today to help get an understanding on the unwritten word. You see, and so we'll get back with the unwritten word, and there's much more to say about it, and so forth and so on. The unwritten word and the heka, which is unwritten word, mantra, as used by the Asian folks, they call the word, the unwritten word, mantra. Okay.